Hey everyone, welcome back. In the previous video, we have designed this sign up page. And now in this video, we will see how one can register. So without filling details, if you click on this sign up button, it will give you error message that all fields are required. So let me register one user here. Suppose if I don't match this password and this confirm password, it will give you error message that password mismatch. So let me match the password, and if I don't accept the terms and conditions and I try to sign up, again it will give you an error message that please agree to our terms and conditions. Now if you sign up, you'll see the success message box that registration is successful, and once you'll click OK, you'll be redirected to this login page. Here you need to enter the same username and the password with which you have registered. Okay, so let me use the same username and same password. If I enter some wrong password here and try to log in, it will give you error message that invalid username or password. So you need to enter the correct password in order to log in successfully. So it says login is successful. So before starting with the coding part, let me show you in MySQL database whether this tuba user data is registered or not. So I'm gonna open MySQL command line client, and here I'll log in with my password. Here I'll display all the databases that are there. So mine database is this register user, so I'll use this database. Then I'll see what are the tables inside this database. So I'll write show tables command. So there is this user data table. Now I want to see the content of this user data table. So I'll write this command, select star from user data. So you can see this is the data inside this table. Okay, and just now we have added this one, the last one, tuba@gmail.com. Then the username is tuba and the password is 1234. So if you will try to register with any of these username, it will give you an error message that this username already exists. So if I try to register once again, let me just show you. So if I click on create new one, I'm gonna give this username Faizan. Okay, let's see if we will be able to register or not. So I'll write Faizan and then any random password. So it says user already exists. So we cannot have two users with the same username. So it has to be some different username. Yeah, now registration is successful. And if you'll go back to command line client and if you repeat that command to display all the data in this user data table, so now you'll see the new data is added here. Okay, so let's see how we can connect with the database MySQL and how we can add all the information inside the table. Okay, I'll provide you a link in the description of this video from where you can download and install MySQL database if you don't have. Okay, and once you install that, after that you will be requiring one external module which will help us in connecting Python with that MySQL database. Okay, so you can simply go to your browser and there you can search for MySQL. Okay, and you can open any website to read more about it. So if you read from here that MySQL is an interface for connecting to a MySQL database server from Python. Okay, and then if you read this one, MySQL is a library that connects to MySQL from Python. It is written in C language and it is free and open source software. Okay, and then MySQL is a Python module that provides functions, objects, and methods to interact with a MySQL database. Okay, so I'll tell you what are those methods which help us in interacting with the MySQL database. All right, so what you guys have to do, go to your terminal and there you need to type pip install pymysql. So once this is installed, now you need to go to your signup.py file. Okay, and you simply need to import it at the top. Import pymysql. Okay, so this will help us in connecting MySQL with Python. Okay, so when we want to connect with the MySQL database, when the user clicks on this sign up button, right, then only the connection should be established and the data should be stored inside the database, right, that will create. So here I'm going to pass a command equals to uh, connect database, and let's define this at the top, def connect database. So let me just print some text before starting the main coding. So let me just show you what will happen if I'll click this sign up button. So once I'll click this sign up button, the code which will be there inside this connect database function, that code will be executed simply. Okay, so we don't have to print anything. Firstly, we will check that if all the entry fields are empty or not. If any one field is empty, then we will show a message box that all fields are required. So here I'll check that if email entry dot get equals to null. So if in the email entry field there is nothing, then this condition will become true, right? Or username entry dot get equals to null, or password entry dot get equals to null, and then last confirm password entry field dot get is equals to null. So if any one out of these entry fields will be empty or all of them are empty, then this condition will become true and will simply display a message box that all fields are required. So in order to display a message box, we need to import it from Tkinter. So we'll write from Tkinter import message box like this. Now you can use this message box module dot show error method, and to this method first thing we need to pass the title. So title will be error, and then we need to pass the message. So message will be all fields are required, like this. So now if I run it, so if you are not entering any of these details and directly try to click on this sign up button, you will see this error message that all fields are required. I hope this is clear. After this condition, next condition that I'll be applying is this password, and this confirm password should match. If they are not matching, then we'll display a message box, error message box, that password mismatch. Okay, so here I'll check for another condition, elif password entry dot get is not equals to confirm password entry dot get. If these two entry fields won't have the same password, in that case I'll display an error message box again. So I'll copy this error message box from here and I'll paste here. The message will be changed to password mismatch, like this. So if I enter some random email, username, password and confirm password, if password and confirm password are not matching, in that case you'll see that password mismatch error box. But if you match the password, then you won't be getting that error. Okay, so nothing is happening because we have not added any code after this. Next condition that I'm going to apply is for terms and condition acceptance. So if you'll not tick that checkbox, this one, then you will see error message that please accept terms and conditions. Okay, and to apply this condition, we will be passing one variable to this check button, okay, which will store either 0 or 1. So when you will check this check button, then inside that variable we will get 1, otherwise 0. So I'll create one variable here with name check, and this will be an int variable. Okay, and I'll pass this variable inside this check button. So I'll write variable equals to check. So this check variable will store 0 when the check button is not checked, otherwise it will store 1. Okay, so with the help of this variable only, I'll check that whether the check button is checked or not. So here I'll write elif check dot get. If inside this variable we are getting 0, in that case this check button is unchecked. Okay, so I'll display a message box, error message box. So I'll paste here, and the error would be please accept terms and conditions. So now if I'll run it, and let me just enter some random things. So if I don't check it, so firstly we will be getting error message for this password mismatch. Okay, but if I match this password, now it will give you please accept terms and conditions error message box. Okay, so you need to accept it. So once you accept it, now you won't be getting that error. So I hope I have covered all the conditions, and now we'll simply move to the else part. If you will fill all the details correctly, in that case you will simply go to the else part, and in the else part I will firstly connect with the database. So in order to connect with the database, we'll be requiring this pymysql module. So I'll write pymysql dot connect method, and to this connect method we will pass host, which will be localhost, and make sure you add it in the form of a string. After that you need to enter username, which will be root, and then password, which will be 1234. Oh, here it will be user and not username. Okay, so this user and this password you will set while installing MySQL database on your system. Okay, and I'll assign this to a variable con. Okay, and this variable will help us in committing our changes. So whenever we will delete some data or update some data or add some data, in that case we need to commit our changes. So this variable will help me in that. Okay, and this variable will also help in creating a cursor which will simply execute our commands. So we'll write con dot cursor method, and this is nothing but my cursor, so it will simply help in executing different commands. So these two variables are very useful. So once your connection is established, and what if your connection is not established and you are getting some database connectivity issue? In that case, you will be getting some exception. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this in this try block. So if there won't be any issue, then this try block code will be executed, and if there is some connectivity issue, then this except block code will be executed. And here I'm simply going to display a message box, and I'll simply show error will be that database connectivity issue, please try again. Okay, and then I'll simply return from here. So if I'll be getting this error message box, then I'll return from here. I won't be executing the code that I'm going to write after this. Okay, if we are getting this error message box. So suppose the connection is established, then this particular code will be executed. This except block code won't be executed. After that, I'll simply create the database. So for that, I need to execute one query. So I'll take some variable query inside which I'll write the query for creating database. So the query is create database and then the database name. So the database name that I'm going to give is a user data. Okay. So this query is inside this variable, and now we need to execute this query. Okay, so in order to execute query, as I told you, we'll be using this my cursor variable. So write my cursor dot execute method. Okay, and to this execute method we need to pass the query. So query is inside this query variable. Okay, so what this will do, this will simply create this database user data. And then the next thing is we need to use this database. For that, the query is use user data, like this, and let's execute this. So my cursor dot execute, and we'll pass the query. Okay, so we'll simply move to this user data database, and then we need to create a table. So for creating the table, the query will be create table and then the table name. So table name can be anything like data, and then here you need to mention what will be the columns of this table. Okay, so firstly we will have id, which will be auto incremented primary key. Okay, next will be email, then username, and then the password. Okay, so firstly we'll mention id int, and it will be auto increment, and it will be primary key, so it will be unique and it will not be null. After that we will have email column, and it will have 50 characters, so email cannot be more than 50 characters. Okay, after that we'll enter username varchar 100. So this varchar is nothing but the data type of this email. Okay, so email will have only characters. Similarly, username will also have characters and maximum 100 characters. After that, we'll mention the password. So password varchar 20 characters. Okay, like this. So this is the query, and now we need to execute this query. So we'll write mycursor dot execute and we'll pass this query. Okay, so this table data will be created and it will have these columns: ID, email, username and password. Okay, so these email, username and password will store the data that the user will fill in the entry fields of sign up page. Okay, so if I'll run this code, you will see that user data database will be created, and inside it you will see data table will be created and it will have these columns. Okay, so let me just run it. So I have clicked on the sign up button, and now let's see in our MySQL command line client whether this database is created there or not. So I'll open this command line client and I'll simply write show databases. So it will show all the databases that are present there. Okay, I made a mistake in databases spelling, so I'll correct it. So you can see at the last, user data database is created. Okay, and then we can use this database. So use user data. Okay, so database is changed, and now we can see the tables inside this database. So we'll write show tables, and inside it we have this data table. Now let's see what are the columns inside this table. So we'll write description of this data table. So you can see what are the fields there. So first field is ID. Okay, this is of type integer and it won't be null, so you cannot keep it empty. Actually, since it's auto increment, so like you don't have to do anything with this ID, it will be auto incremented by its own. Then we have this email, so maximum 50 characters can be there. Then username, maximum 100 characters can be there, and then password, maximum 20 characters can be there. Okay, so this is the description here. Now if you want to see what is the data inside this data table, for that you need to write this command: select star from data table. So it says empty set. Okay, because we have not added the code to insert the data in our database. Okay, so let's see that. And before inserting the data in the database, let me run this again. I'll show you one thing. Let me enter the details here. So if I'll click on this sign up button, you'll see some error, and the error says that can't create database user data, database exists. Okay, so when I'm running this code and when I'm clicking the sign up button, this code is getting executed again, right? So this database is already created, so it won't create the database again, right? So that's why you are seeing this error message. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll again apply try and except block here. So if the database is not created, then this try block code will be executed, and if this database is already created, okay, in this case the database is created now, So this block code won't be executed, and now I want to execute this except block code, and here I'll simply execute one query. So I'll write my cursor dot execute, and I'll simply pass the query inside this execute method only. So the query will be use user data database. Okay, so we'll simply use this database if the database is already existing. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. So now you won't be getting that error. If I run it, if I randomly add some text, so now you are not getting any error. I hope this is clear to you, because this time this except block code is getting executed. Okay, now after this I want to insert the data that I am writing in those entry fields of sign up page inside MySQL database, inside this particular table, data table. Okay, so what query I need to write? So I'll write insert into, then the table name, which is data, and you need to insert email, then username, and then password, right? Because we have these three columns there only. This id will also be there, but this is auto increment, so its value will automatically increase. Okay, so we just have to insert data inside this email, this username, and this password. So we are mentioning email, username, and password here. Okay, so the query will be insert into data, then whatever values that you want to insert, values, and in parentheses you need to mention %s, comma %s, comma %s. So these %s will be replaced with the values which will be there inside the entry fields of sign up page. Okay, so this is the query, and now let's execute it. So we'll write my cursor dot execute, and here we'll pass the query, and after that we also need to pass the values with which these %s will be replaced. Okay, so firstly we'll get the email from email entry, then username will get from username entry, and then password will get from password entry. Okay, I hope this is clear. So this way your data will be inserted inside this data table. Okay, and as I told you that when we insert some data in our table, or when we delete some data, or when we update some data, we also need to commit our changes, and this variable helps in that. Okay, in committing our changes. So since we are inserting the data in our database, so we need to commit our changes. So we'll write con dot commit method like this. So this will commit our changes, and then you can simply disconnect the connection that we established. So we'll write con dot close. Okay, after this we'll simply display a message box dot show info, and the title will be success, and the message will be registration is successful. Once you'll see this message box, and once you'll click OK, after that I want all the data to be deleted from the entry fields. For that I'll call one function here, which is clear, but this function is not defined, as you can see red line here. So I'll define this function at the top, which will help us in simply clearing all the entry fields. Okay, and here we'll firstly clear our email entry field. So we'll write email entry dot delete method from start till end will delete everything. Then we'll delete everything from the user entry. After that, we'll delete everything from password entry. And then we'll delete from confirm password entry, like this. So firstly, till here, let's run and see. So if I enter some detail here, so as soon as I'll click this sign up button, it says registration is successful. I'll click OK. You can see all the fields are deleted from here. I also want to uncheck this button. So for that, I'll simply write check variable. I'll simply set this check variable to 0, like this. Okay, so this check button will be unchecked simply once the registration is successful. Alright, I hope this is clear. And once everything is cleared, I also want to close this registration form, this sign up page. Okay, so I'll use this sign up window dot destroy method, and after closing this sign up window, I want to see this login page so that the user can directly log in. Okay, so I'll simply import this signin.py file here, like this. Okay, so let's run once again. Let me again fill up some data here. So it says registration is successful, and that window is closed and this window is opened here. Okay, so now the user can log in, but that functionality we have not yet added. So we'll see that functionality, and before that, let me just show you in the database if those two database datas are added or not. So I'll open command line client. Here I'll simply use that database user data. Okay, and then I'll simply display the data inside that data table of this user data database. Okay, so I'll write select star from data. So you can see these two data I have just added in this database, right? So I hope this is clear to you, how to create the database, how to create the table, then how to insert the data inside this database. And now we will see how we can log in with the help of this username and this password. Okay, so if the username will enter this username and this password, then only he will be able to log in. And before moving towards that, let me add one more condition that I missed is when we are registering, we should not register with the same username. Right now, if I'll try to register with this Kanika username, it will be registered successfully. So I don't want to register with the same username which is already existing in our database. For that, let me just apply a condition here in the code. So I'll check in the database if the username exists or not. So for that, I'll write one query here. So query will be select star from data where username equals to %s. Okay, and this %s will be replaced with this username entry value. Okay, so let's execute this. So write my cursor dot execute and we'll pass this query and then the value of username entry field. So I'll write username entry dot get. Okay, so this %s will be replaced with this value. So after executing this command, I will fetch rows. Okay, so if there is some row where the username is the same that you are typing on this username entry, then I'll simply display a message box that username already exists. Otherwise, I'll execute this particular command of inserting that data in our database. Okay, so I'll simply write my cursor dot fetch 1. Okay, so this will simply fetch that row where there will be this username. Okay, and will store in some variable row, and we'll check the condition that if row is not equals to none, it means the user exists, right? If you will be getting some row inside this row variable, that means the user exists. In that case, we'll simply display an error message box. So I'll copy from here and I'll paste here, and the message will be username already exists. Okay, but if you are not getting any row, then we'll simply move to the else part, and in the else part I'll be executing this code. So I'll select it and will provide indentation like this. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. So what I have done here, I have firstly tried to get the data from the database where username is same as the username on this entry field. If you are getting any row, in that case you'll see this message box, otherwise that particular data will be inserted in the database. Let me just run and show you. So I'll use Kanika username once again. Since this is repeating, so it should simply display a message box that username already exists. So yeah, we are getting the same message box, username already exists. But if I change it to some other username, now it will accept it and it says registration is successful. So now in the next video, we will be working on this login page functionality and also on this forget password button. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. If you have any doubts, let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching.